was skeptical when Ghostbusters Afterlife came out because I wasn't sure it even needed to exist. But it turned out to be a fun ride that refreshed the franchise for a new generation. Now we've got Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, and the team is back in the Big Apple to take on something tall, dark, and horny. Will this one put a smile on your face, or should you cross the beams and send this one back to where it came from? When the discovery of an ancient artifact unleashes an evil force, Ghostbusters new and old must join forces to protect their home and save the world from a second ice age. So returning for Frozen Empire are Paul Rudd, Carrie Coon, Finn Wolfhard, and McKenna Grace. And then we also get the nostalgia bait with Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Ernie Hudson, and Annie Potts. And with all of them together, this does create a fun family adventure that's full of early 80s nostalgia. I mean, not only do we get some visuals of the original films, but even portions of the story feel like they're revisiting ideas that emanate from the original. Now, the sentimentality, it is enjoyable, and it can be cute, but because we're back in New York City, in the firehouse, driving the hearse through the streets of Manhattan, there is a loss of originality. And if you've seen any of the trailers, even the first teaser one, the story has already been spelled out. So we've got this new baddie ghost who's wreaking havoc through the power of fear. And it's a fear so deadly, it turns blood to ice. Now, it is a cool concept, and the execution is done well, but the premise and the setup don't offer much that's new. Now, I like McKenna Grace's role in this. She's the tie that binds the story together, drawing on family themes, including the longing to belong and have a purpose. She gets to have some emotional moments that amplify the sequences and then make them impactful and engaging. Now, Finn Wolfhard, he's been relegated in this to the background dumb guy slapstick kind of role. I mean, honestly, some of it is funny, and he does a good job of eliciting laughs through his natural timing and his sarcasm. And the same goes for Paul Rudd. I mean, he doesn't have a massive role in the film, even though he is present in almost all of it. He's just not the driver for the narrative. Now, Grace is fully in the lead, also pulling in some camaraderie from Dan Aykroyd as they make a wonderful, similarly screwy oddball team. And that's something that also holds true for the original cast. While they add the nostalgia, they still have their comedic sharpness, and they work well off each other's timings to create some easy humor. Patton Oswalt has a small role, and he certainly makes the most of it, creating this quirky and equally geeky researcher. He too brings the right amount of comedy for the situation, and while he doesn't overplay the role, creating a character that's both memorable and enjoyable without being grating. But then, for me, the standout of the movie is Kumail Nanjiani. He is a slacker dude who's unassuming and comes across as a useless loser, but he's ridiculously funny, inserting just the right expressions and vocal inflections to create the perfect situation for laughs. I mean, he's brilliant in the role, and my biggest complaint with him is that I would have loved to have seen even more of his character in the story. I mean, it doesn't call for it, but I liked him so much I just wanted more. Now, I'm impressed with the special effects that were shown in this, and it is CGI heavy. We don't get a ton of ghosts that are visual, but the ones we do, they're creatively crafted and unique in their presentations. The big baddie, who we kind of see in the trailer, did remind me a lot of Gozer, even though the physical manifestation is completely different. The creature design, it's also kind of weird, mostly in a good way. There's a very decrepit aesthetic that also employs some menacing attributes, which adds a slightly creepy vibe to the character. It's not so scary to create nightmares for little kids, but it is built out in a way that makes it not something that you'd want to meet inside a dark alley. Now, there are also a couple of visuals were shown that are directly from previous films. And I think these are purely for callbacks to those of us who are old enough to have seen the first two movies in the theater. And it's fun, but it's also sort of lazy. Now, the film is just under 2 hours, but it felt long. I'm not really certain that's a negative. I mean, there's a good portion that is just world building for us. Not that we don't understand who the Ghostbusters are and what they do, but how the characters fit into this world, transplanted from the middle of the country into a bustling metropolis. Then the stresses that teenagers with growing independence face too. Way before we even get to meet the big bad, we're given time to become invested in the character arc that McKenna Grace is experiencing. Now, I like that the narrative didn't rush that portion, so that when she is faced with decisions, they all feel earned and right. But then, with that said, the last 20-ish minutes do feel like they come on quickly and then are hastily resolved. I mean, for all the buildup we get, the showdown, it's rather anticlimactic. There's some fun moments, and also some tension is built, but if compared with the rest of the storytelling, the finale is just a blip and then it's over. I would have preferred more peril or stakes for the characters once that battle commences. But I guess, in an attempt to just keep this under the 2-hour mark, they shortened the fight and then neutered some of the excitement. All in all, this isn't a bad movie at all. I mean, I enjoyed the time with the characters and appreciated the humor that was delivered. Kumail Nanjiani stole every scene that he was in, riding the line of dim-witted and mildly courageous while exploiting the scenarios for every bit of comedy he could. The reliance on nostalgia weakens the plot, but the graphics and special effects help to reinforce the spectral oddities, while the old and new casts blend well to create a lovable extended family. McKenna Grace's character journey and the familial themes that were examined are touching and memorable, giving the story the heart it needed to keep this from becoming just another forgettable sequel. There's no sex or nudity, some profanity, and a lot of violence. I give Ghostbusters Frozen Empire 3.5 out of 5 couches. So if you've been excited to see this one, then out of the 3 that have been released so far, which is your favorite? Or maybe, which of the characters do you enjoy the most? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.